What is up, fellow developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in this video we're going to be creating a weather application inside of Vue JS. We've done 2 weather apps in the past 3 days, because we did a vanilla JavaScript one and a React one prior to this video. So in this video we're going to be creating the same application but in Vue JS. So without further ado, let me show you what it can do. That rhymed. That was cool. So if you're in a hot place, you've got Nigeria, which is 27 degrees. You can obviously see it's quite a warm feeling background. But if you were to go to somewhere such as London, UK, you can see it's only 7 degrees and it kind of goes to more of a cold bluey background, bluey white background, which makes you feel a bit cold inside, you know, just like my brain. Okay guys, so to install, if you have never used Vue before, to install Vue you can run 2 commands. You either need yarn installed or npm, so node package manager. You can either run npm -g I at Vue /CLI, or my preferred way is using yarn, where you can go yarn global add, and then we can give it at Vue /CLI. You click enter and this will install the Vue CLI for you. Once you have done that, you can then run Vue create and then give it a name. So in this one we're going to say Vue weather. We're going to hit enter and this is going to run a installer that's going to give us a boilerplate. But first we have to pick a preset, so we can either manually select the features or click the default, and I'm going to click the default. This is going to run an install. While that's running the install, we will open up, we already have Google Chrome open up, of course we do. Let's break a tab off here, let's widen this, and we're going to go get an API. So we're using the API.weather, or we could just say weather, the open weather map / that's not it. Open weather map / API. Now, when this loads, you can see this is the documentation for it, but you can sign up. So if you go to sign up, you can then enter in all your details and get a free API key. Once you've done that, you need to sign in. Once you have signed in, you need to go over to your API keys and select an API. I'm going to remove this one and this one and create a new one for VueJS. So down in the bottom right, you can see create keys. So I'm going to say Vue app and click generate. And that is going to generate a new key. We're going to copy that and keep that in our clipboard ready. So I can now just minimize this and we can continue on. So I'll see you once this has finished. Oh, and it's perfectly just finished on time. So cool. So we're going to cd into this and then we're going to run code.and yarn serve. So it's going to run our surfer. Hit enter and we'll wait for that to run. Well, actually, we can actually start setting up a few things. So let's open this. Let's close that. Let's delete assets. We don't well, actually we will need assets. So let's delete components, delete that component, and inside assets delete logo.png. Open up app.vue. Let's remove the inner pieces of the app. Let's remove this and delete these. Just basically clearing up our boilerplate here. So let me explain what's going on. So in VueJS, the boilerplate, we get a few default files. We get the public folder, which you don't really need to touch. You also get the source, and this is where you spend all your time. You've got the main.js file, which you don't need to touch unless you know what you're doing. And finally, you've got the templates, and the templates are known as Vue files. And in there, you get a template, which is your markup, your script, which is your JavaScript, and your style, which is your CSS. And then you obviously have your assets folder. So this is what Vue looks like, and let's get started with this. So we need to actually set up that key. So in here, we're going to create something called data, and we're going to create a function, and this function returns an object. And in this object, we're going to say API_key, and we're going to set it to a string, which is equal to our API key. So that is the first thing. So let's have a look at our surfer. That should be done. So if we refresh this page, you'll see we get a blank page. But if we was to write something in here like hello and hit save, and oh, it updated for us. So we got hello written in there, which is perfect. So let's start creating our markup. So in here we want a main, and then inside the main we're going to have a search box. Inside the search box, we'll have an input with the type of text, and we're going to use the search bar. If you're wondering how I'm just typing this all out and it's just every time I hit tab it enters or creates the element, that is because I'm using emip. It's built into VS Code, and you can hit tab every time. You can do things such as .test hashtag yes. I'm rhyming today, I'm doing really well. So we've got that with the class of search bar, and that is all we need for now. Actually, we do need a placeholder though, which is going to say search ... And there we go. So we can see that element over here. Let's then set up some styling. So in our styles, we just want to firstly create a margin, which goes 0, a padding which equal to 0, a box sizing, which is going to be equal to border box. We're then going to have a body with a font family equal to Montserrat. No, it's wrong. That should be 2 R's, 1 T. And it's sans serif. We're then going to set up the app, which is our main component here, the wrapper component. And in here, we're going to say background-image is equal to URL /assets/cold-background.jpg. Now we need to paste these files into this. If I hit save, it's not going to find that. So let's actually go and add that in. I'm just going to quickly grab it in my files. There we go. You can see now there's something going on there, which we'll discuss in a second. So these files are now in our assets. You can see there's cold background and there's warm background.jpg. Now in our app, we want to continue on by saying background size equal to cover, and background position is equal to bottom. So you see it go dark on the right. There we go, it's gone dark because the bottom of the image is dark. We're also going to give it a transition of 0.4 seconds, which should allow it to transition when we swap things. So in our main, we're going to give it a min height of 100 vertical height, which is then going to bring it to be the same height as our screen. We're then going to give it a padding of 25 pixels. Hit save, and as you can see, that's been pulled to the center. We also want to give this a background image, which we're going to use a linear gradient, and we're going to say to bottom. So that is the direction. We're then going to give it the first color, which starts at the top. So 000, 0.25. We're then going to give it another color, which is going to be, again, RGBA. It's going to also be 000, but this one is going to be have an opacity of 0.75. Hit save, and there you go. You've got this nice gradient over the top, and this will allow us to be able to see our page a little better. So quickly, let's type in here search box with a width of 100%, and a margin bottom of about 30 pixels. We're then going to say search box dot search bar, and we're just selecting the inner component of search box, and in here we're just going to display this as a block element. We're going to give it a width of 100%. We're going to give it some padding of about 15 pixels, a color of 313131, a font size, let's actually zoom in here and scroll up so it's easier to read and close that side, a font size of around 20 pixels. We're going to give it a border, so down here we're going to give it appearance, none, border, none, outline, again, none. These are all just resets, and a background of none. We're then going to give it a background color of RGBA 255, 255, 255, 0.15. Hit save. Oh, did I do that right? Sorry, 0.5 maybe. Why am my background color not working? So we've got background none, but that should not affect it. But the opacity is not. I see, my bad. So we've got to add in a comma after the last 255. There we go. So that is there. We're then going to give it a border radius, and this is going to be a nice, cool, weird effect. So we're going to go 0 pixels, 16 pixels, 0 pixels, 16 pixels, which is going to give it this nice little corner, curve. And then after the corner, curve, we're going to give it a transition of 0.4 seconds. We're going to give it a search box dot search bar with a focus. So when we actually click into it, we're going to give it a background color of RGBA, again the same one, but this time we're going to give it a 7.5. We're also actually going to give this element up here a box shadow of 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 16 pixels, RGBA 2.5. Hit save. That gives it a slight shadow. And then when we focus on it, we want to increase this shadow just by a little bit. So we'll go 0 pixels, 0 pixels, sorry, 16 pixels. Here should be 8 pixels. And then we're going to give it again the same value as before. We're then going to give it a border radius again. So we're going to change the border radius when we focus on it. And before it was 0 pixels, 16. This one we're going to do 16 pixels, 0 pixels, 16 pixels, 0 pixels. Hit save. Now when we focus on it, you can see there's this nice little transition switch just to give it a nice visual effect. We now need to add some more markup. So inside this, we need to create a weather.wrap or weather-wrap. And then inside these elements, we're going to give it the location box. And inside that, we're going to give it a location diff, which would be something such as Northampton, UK. We're then going to give it a date diff, and this date diff is going to give us the, let's say the date, so it would be something such as Monday, the 20th of January 2020. That would just be an example. We're then going to have the weather box, and inside the weather box, it's going to be a temperature. And inside and we're going to have the weather status, so such as rain. So we're going to say it's about 9 degrees. So I'm going to press Alt, Shift, and 8 on my keyboard to give me the degree sign. I'm going to hit save, and as you can see, all this information is now right here. Okay, we've got the information. Let's style it up. So let's go down into our style underneath our search box. And we're going to start off with the location box. We're going to say location box dot location. We're going to give it a color of white, a font size of around 32 pixels, a font weight of 500 because we want it to be about medium, a text align of center because we want it all to be centered, and finally the text shadow can be around 1 pixel, 3 pixel, RGBA 2.5. Like we have before. There we go, save, and there you go. That's moved that to the center, and that looks pretty good, I think. We're then going to do the date, so we're going to say .location box .date. We're going to give that also pretty much the same values. So let's copy this, paste it in there, but let's make that 20 pixels. Let's make that 300. Let's give it a font. Let's give it a font style. And font style be italic. I feel that works. Text center, and I don't know if we don't need a box shadow for that one. It'll be fine. Let's sort out the weather box, and that's going to have the text align center also. We're then going to get the weather box dot temperature, and now this one's got quite a lot to think about. So we want to display it as inline block because we want to add padding to it, so we need the block part, but we also want to text center it, and we don't want it to be full width, so we're going to inline block it. We're then going to give it a padding of 10 pixels, 25 pixels. So if we hit save, you'll see it's now over on the right side. We've gave it its padding. We now want to give it some color, so we'll give it the white. We'll give it a font size of 102 pixels, a font weight of 900 to make it nice and dark. We'll give it a text shadow of 3 pixels, 6 pixels. We'll give it an RGBA of that. We're going to give it a background color equal to RGBA 2525, probably 252. So let's hit save, and there we go. That's looking pretty good. We want to give it a border radius of 16 pixels and a margin of 30 pixels on both top and bottom, but none on the left and right. Now that is what we've got, and I think that looks pretty good. It's got a nice little float. We can also to this add a we could add a box shadow, and we'll give it again about 3 pixels, 6 pixels, RGBA 2525. We hit save. Oh, sorry, this needs to be 0. Oh, 0 for those, and if we now refresh, oh, sorry, we need to hit save before we refresh, and as you can see, we get this nice little box shadow, which makes it look like it's popping off the screen slightly. I like that. So finally, we need to actually do the weather box. weather, which is the weather status. I probably should have called it that. We'll give it FFF, we'll give it a font size. It's not font size. Font size of around 48 pixels. We need it to be quite big, but not as big as the main bit. We'll give it a font weight of bold, which is definitely 100. A font style of italic again, because I think that looks nice on this. And we'll give it a text shadow of about 3 pixels, 6 pixels, RGBA, and the same value we've been using. Hit save. And there we go. But I think overall that looks pretty good. Obviously, I did have someone send me a really awesome version of my weather app, which they implemented some snow and rain falling down depending if it was raining. We're not going to do that in the video, but maybe we'll do it in the future. So let's now think about all the functionality. So if we go back up to the top, we've got our search box, and we basically need to bind some data. So whatever we type in here, we want to store somewhere because it's going to be our search query. So we're going to create in our data an area called, we actually want the URL base here. So the URL base is the API base. So for example, when we make a request, this is what needs to go at the front of our request. So if we now just paste that in, and then that is our base of our URL. But to bind the search box, we want to give it something called like query is probably best, and it will be set to a string. We also want the weather, somewhere to store the data we get back once we make the request. So we're going to create a weather data object. And now we've got that, we're going to need some methods, right? We need somewhere to actually store the information. But before we do that, let me show you what we're going to do here. So we're going to type in here fee model, and what fee model does is, as you can read on the right, says it creates a two-way binding on a form input element or a component. So if we say in here query, that binds it to the data element we have down here called query. So now if we was to export query underneath here and just say query and hit save, nothing actually appears. But if we start typing, you can see whatever we type appears at the bottom there. So let's remove that from the screen, and now we've bind query to what we need it to be. We also need to set up to a function, because we need to know when we actually press a key. So at key press, this can also be done another way called fee on, which could be key press, but we want to do it as an at symbol because it's the shorthand for it. And then in here we're going to do something called fetch weather, and that is going to basically, when we press a key, any key, it's going to call fetch weather. But we don't actually want it to call this function every single time, or method every single time we press any key. So we want to say we only want it to happen if we press the enter key. So we're going to set an if statement in here called if the key, so we're going to pass through the event, and if the key is equal to enter, the return key, we're then going to run this piece of code. So we're going to say fetch. Fetch is a JavaScript API that allows us to make requests, and we're going to use template strings to basically say this dot API underscore base. So that's the base of the API, and then we're going to use weather. And we're going to say it's equal to Q. So weather here is the API to get the current weather. You can check this out on their documentation I showed you earlier. And then we're going to say Q is equal to, and this stands for query. So this is what we actually want to query. So now we're going to pass through this dot query, which is going to get our query here, which we've set, which is bound to our search box input. And then after here, we want to say and units is equal to metric. If you want it imperial, you can just remove this. So if you want Fahrenheit, you could just remove this and it will pass you back that. And now we need to pass through our API key we got. So it's called app ID for this, and we're just going to say this dot API underscore key. And now we're going to use a callback. So we're going to say dot then, and we're going to get the weather, or should we say the data or the response. And then we're just going to say return res.json. And then we need to say dot then again, because we also need to, once we've returned the JSON, we need to do another request. And we're going to say this dot set results. And this is going to be a method we set underneath this one. So under here, we're going to say set results, and we're going to pass through the results, and then we're going to say this.weather. So our weather object, we're actually going to sell it to the results because that is the weather we're getting back. So we hit save, we've got this information, but we need to be able to display it. And we're going to have an issue if we start trying to just display it straight away. Because if we went here and we said, okay, so I know the weather name, so the place, we're going to say weather, which is equal to our object. But once we get it returned, it's going to be weather.name, which is going to give us the place, so the city. But if I hit save, you can see that disappears. And if we then put in another one here and we say weather.size.country, hit save, and we refresh here, you can see we don't get anything. And the issue is, if I open up the terminal, you can see it says we can't read property country of undefined. The reason it can't read that property of country of undefined is because it's not actually defined yet, because we haven't got the data. So we created this weather wrap, which actually looked useless up until now. So what this weather wrap does is all we need to do with it is say phi-if. So it's like a conditional statement. So we're only going to render this if weather.main is not equal to if it's not equal to undefined. And that is when we'll display this information. So if we hit save again and we refresh, I spelled undefined wrong, or undefined. There we go. Now, there you go. So now it shows everything, but it's not showing any of the information here because we haven't got it yet. So we have to make a search. So if we now did a search for somewhere, let's say London, hit enter. There is another error. Let's have a look why it is. Cannot read property country. Nope, that's fine. Unexpected token at somewhere. So I've made an error somewhere. So type of weather.main is not equal to undefined. Okay, guys. So here I put API based, but this should actually be URL based. So now if we type in here London and hit enter, you can see it actually passes back through London, Great Britain, which is perfect. So just make sure you get your things right. So now we've set that and we've got the weather down here, and this is now rendering this every time we get the information. So let's pass through the rest of the information. So for the temperature, we just need to remove that 9. We then need to say math.round, because if we don't, we'll get a number such as 9.64 or something similar, and that won't, and that kind of looks messy. We want it actually to be rounded to the nearest whole number. So in this case, we're just going to say weather.main.temperature, and if we hit save, you can see it's now 7 degrees in London. So if we now check what the actual, we can now say weather.weather, which is actually an array. So we're going to get the first one in the array and then say .main and hit save. And you can see it's cloudy in London. So now we've got everything but our date. So the date, we actually have to create a function for to get today's date. So here we're going to create something called the date builder. And I'm actually going to paste in just a little bit of code here because we're going to need this information. So we're going to pass through in here, we're going to pass through the date. So we're going to create a new date, which is equal to now. We're going to get the months and we're going to get the days. And then what we're going to do is basically, I'm actually just going to copy this whole chunk here, which I've written many times before in the other videos here, and paste this in. So what we're saying is let day is equal to day. So this date equal to the date.getDay, which is going to get us a number between 0 and 6, which is going to be able to return to us either Sunday to Saturday. We're then going to get the date, which is just got getDay, which is going to get us a number such as the 12th, and then the rest of it. And then we're going to pull it into a string, hit save, and now up here, we're going to pass through, and we're going to say date builder, and we're just going to call that and hit save. And what is the issue? Passing expected. Oh, I put a thing through there. Sorry, my bad. So now let's get someone, let's say Nigeria. And as you can see, it gets us Nigeria, Sunday the 12th of January 2020, to 27 degrees, and it's cloudy. Now, that's all good, but the background didn't change. We've gone over a certain threshold. It's quite warm, and the background didn't change, and we want it to change. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our our CSS, our styles tag, and under app we're going to say hashtag app.warm, and then we're going to say background hyphen image is equal to URL ./asset/warm hyphen background.jpg. I'm going to hit save, and then we're going to go up to the top and we're going to write in a query in here. So we're going to bind the class, bind the class to a couple of JavaScript checks. So we're going to say type, so we're going to write type of weather dot main is not equal, dot main is not equal to, and we're going to say undefined, and weather dot main dot temp, so the temperature is more than 16 degrees, we're going to return warm, else we're going to return an empty string because we don't need a class. So we're going to hit save, and as you can see, it nicely transitions to a nicer background to do with the weather. So if we went to somewhere such as Northampton in the UK and hit enter, you can see that it's cold. It's only 6 degrees right now, and it's clear skies, which is not normal. It should normally be raining or something, but everything else, we've got Sunday 12th January 2020. So that is pretty awesome. That is our whole weather app, and I hope you have learned something new about VueJS, how to build your own weather app in VueJS, and I'd love to see some people's weather apps they've built from this and improved on to made better. So maybe added in the min temperature, the max temperature, maybe animated it, so if it said clear, it would be clear skies. If it was raining, rain would be falling down, snowing, snow, etc, etc, which would be pretty awesome. So, without further ado guys, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see more, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button, especially if you're new around here, to get updated as soon as we upload a new video. Hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching this video, and peace out.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back.